go?
Terrific. First, I want to apologize to everybody. We're doing house construction and it has messed up our Wi-Fi, so I'm using my phone and I apologize for the delay. And in the meantime, Tom, I'm going to struggle to get back on with my computer. So at some point I will transfer over. But I can't see everyone on my phone, but I'm going to trust that everyone is here and we've got critical mass.
That is correct, Regent Javal.
Okay, terrific, great. So good morning to everyone. I'd like to call the meeting of the May 13th, 2021 Research and Health Sciences Committee to order. It's a virtual meeting, of course, so please speak clearly. Do remember that only members of the committee can provide a second to a motion. And live stream of the public meeting, of course, as always, is available to the public on YouTube and on the ABOR Live link. Our business today is twofold. We are here to discuss the 2020 annual research report, and also to get an update on the Arizona State University Mayo partnership. The original schedule had us discussing them in that order, but President Crow has got a conflict with a big sports announcement coming up. So we're going to reverse them so that we can have the benefit of his input around Mayo. So we're going to start with that. But before going to that, let me introduce Ken Pelasko, who is new to the ABOR team, to the board office. Ken was formerly the executive director for ASU's technology enterprise, as well as director for the UCLA Business Development Industry Sponsored Research Department. He has had a long history in the private sector with Motorola. He's got a PhD in electrical engineering and an MBA from Stanford University. And we're just thrilled that Ken is going to take his position at ABOR alongside Chad and George and Debbie in support of the work of this committee, research, tech transfer, the PBC, TRIF, and other things. Before we go to the Mayo topic, we need to approve the minutes from the last meeting, which was March 26, 2021, and also to approve the executive session minutes from October 24th. Are there any questions or comments about our minutes? Hearing none, I move that the committee approve the minutes from the March 26, 2021 Research and Health Sciences Committee meeting and the executive session minutes from the October 24th, 2019 Research and Health Sciences Committee meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Great. Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Terrific. So what we're going to do is cover these two topics, Mayo and the research report. But before doing that, I want to say something at the front end about today's conversation and about where we are in the research agenda of our universities. And I just want to say, and I'm confident I speak for the whole board in saying this, I can't remember a time when university research was more visible and relevant in the lives of Arizona citizens. You know, while COVID in so many ways was a tragedy and a social disruptor, it pushed our capacity for service and for value forward like nothing I've seen in recent decades, from testing labs to PPP equipment to the saliva tests to our vaccine distribution. And, you know, what a terrific demonstration of the value of what we do. And of course, it's not limited to COVID. I mean, OSIRIS-REx and our role in it was international news. We're on the front lines of the climate crisis and health inequities. We just, the disruptions that have occurred over the last year or two have really given us an opportunity to show us at our best, and our presidents and our universities and our VPs for research have really, really stepped up. We all know our impact on the state's economy. Our platform in research now approaches $1.5 billion. ASU is one of the fastest growing research universities in the nation, third in NASA funding. NAU has grown by just a head-turning 124% in the last decade. U of A has exceeded its enterprise goal by almost $100 million. So I just want to say at the outset, at a time when, sadly, expertise and brain power is often shunned and mocked around the country, our universities rose to the occasion, and I think our taxpayers have seen it, our stakeholders at the state have seen it. The value of knowledge and the role we play in driving solutions has never been more relevant. So while it's our job to ask questions and challenge us to go further and drive harder, I just want to start this meeting by saying we start this meeting from a place as a board of enormous pride, gratitude, and excitement for the work that's taking place. So congratulations and thank you to all of you. So let's move to Mayo and start with that. And President Crow, I see you're on the call, and I think I can't see others, but Neil may be on the call. This started about, I guess, 4 or 5 years ago, and I don't know that we've done a thorough update, but today is our morning to do so. So over to you, and what we'd like to talk about is original vision. I've actually gone back and looked at the original Rich Stanley and Michael Crow presentation from 2018 and kind of what's taken place in the last 5 years, where we are and where we're going.
Thank you, Regent Duval. And just for President Robbins' edification, little did we know until yesterday that today's announcement would be occurring on our campus. And so I have a few other things going on related to that announcement. So that's the reason for my somewhat complex life at the moment. And I see Bobby smiling, so he knows what that means. And then Regent Duval, if I can, I want to edify the regents on the emergent structure of ASU. We have our new Executive Vice President, Sally Morton, here with us today. She is Executive Vice President for the ASU Knowledge Enterprise, which is our aspirational goal. Poncha's old job was called Office of Knowledge Enterprise Development. And so his role prior to departure and Betsy's role before she went down to the U of A to lead research down there was to help us to organize ourselves to move in a new collective way. And so Sally's been brought in as the senior university executive responsible for the far more than just research, all things related to the evolution of ASU as a 21st century knowledge enterprise, which goes to solutions and research and corporate development and international development and all things related to the pushing out of ideas and knowledge and structure and so forth. And as a part of her team now, Professor Woodbury has now been appointed the permanent vice president for research and chief science and technology officer for ASU. And so Sally will have a chance to speak and later, but also as a part of the research presentation. But I want everybody to meet Sally. She's a fellow of the AAAS. She's the former dean of science at the Virginia Tech. She's a former chaired professor at the University of Pittsburgh in the medical center staff there, a private sector research leader. And so she brings immense skills and background to us. And so just want everybody to know who Sally is and Neil's role and how we're structured and organized in a different way, because we think everything about us, our aspirations are completely different. So let me just say that at the outset. And then I want to belabor the situation here just for a few minutes for Regents so they can understand exactly where we are relative to our Mayo relationship. This is a relationship that we initiated in the form of a formal alliance, an agreed to alliance between Mayo, that is an actual structure between Mayo and ASU 4 or 5 years ago, but that relationship has been under fast and furious development for 17 years. And that relationship, however, is the product of 4 earlier decisions on the part of the Board of Regents and the university, beginning in 1945, when the Arizona State Teachers College, and this is non-trivial, I wouldn't waste everyone's time unless everybody needed to know what this history was, because it has led us exactly to where we are today. In 1945, the 2 state teachers colleges, one in Flagstaff and one in Tempe, that were a part of the Superintendent of Public Instruction's authority under the State Department of Education, were transferred legislatively to the Arizona Board of Regents. And unlike California, where those teachers college transfers to the University of California, and those entities became a part of the University of California, the 2 state teachers colleges did not become a part of the University of Arizona. They became separate and distinct institutions under the same governing board. And this is absolutely critical to understanding all evolution from that point forward for both schools, both Northern Arizona and ASU. That was a very, very important decision, because then that meant that the normal evolutionary process that occurred in California and other states where maturation of public universities was occurring didn't occur here. 12 years later, the regents of the state of Arizona, ABOR, voted for then Arizona State College to not become a university. in a public vote. You can't be a university because we don't want you to be a university. There's one university. And I'm saying this because that then affected the design of ASU, the evolution of ASU. By public referendum a year later, on the ballot, Arizona State College was named Arizona State University in name only. In 1996, the regents of Arizona voted that Arizona State University could not have a medical school. Voted, could not have a medical school because it would allow ASU to become a research university, which the regents were opposed to at the time. 6 years later, sitting in Tucson on a great veranda somewhere in the shade with Jack Jewett was me on the first official day on the job, July 1st, 2002, with Regent Jack Jewett. Fantastic person, fantastic person. And he said to me, are you going to fix this medical school thing? Are you going to build a medical school? Because ASU is going nowhere without a medical school. I said, we're not going to fix it in the normal way. Time has passed, and it would be better if ASU could evolve in a different pathway and then work with medical schools and work with hospitals and work in a new direction. That was July 1st, 2002. Well, I can tell you, having been the other person in that meeting on that veranda in Tucson on that day, that's not an easy thing to figure out how to do. And so we tried all kinds of things. And one of the things that we decided was, could we build a relationship with the Mayo Clinic, which at the time had only been operational in Arizona for about 15 years, with a world-class reputation, world-class status, a massive campus in Minnesota, unbelievable stature. Could we build a relationship with them? And then could we expand our science programs and our engineering programs and other programs related to medicine and medical education? And could we then become a partner with U of A, a partner with Banner, a partner with this group, this group, this group, this group? But could we find a way to evolve our relationship with the Mayo Clinic as someone that we could work with so that we could have a clinical partner who was non-competitive with us, non-rivalrous with us? Because universities are highly competitive and highly rivalrous as they're trying to emerge. It's normal behavior. We experienced it. It turns out we did get the relationship launched, and we began a systematic series of interactions. We've had monthly meetings with the Mayo leadership for 18 years. Now, it's a slow process in academia. Subsequent to that, we now have a medical school moved to Arizona from Minnesota, operating now a national medical school. The Mayo Clinic has decided to greatly expand the research capability of the Mayo Clinic. They've greatly decided to expand their presence in Arizona. And it's not only related to us, but it is partly related to us and our partnership with them. Now, what that means then to the board is that we're going to end up, in spite of the kinds of unusual decisions made in the last 75 years, we're going to end up stronger, not just ASU, the entire system. We're going to end up stronger and better and more capable and more integrated because, in fact, we didn't follow the normal route, because we didn't follow the normal route of evolution. And so we have worked to build a comprehensive relationship with the Mayo Clinic. We now have a building built on 27 acres of land adjacent to the north campus of the Mayo Clinic in North Phoenix, where Mayo is moving into their $3 billionth of investment by expansion. A new research building from the Mayo Clinic will be built adjacent to the ASU Mayo Healthcare Alliance building that we've constructed, which we'll hear more about in just a second. We've expanded our interactions in teaching, in learning, in education, in research, in service, in problem solving, in biomedical integration, but not on an exclusive basis. They are called a comprehensive relationship for us. And at the same time, we have greatly expanded our relationships with the U of A, with Banner, with Honor, with other healthcare organizations on the research level, on the training level, on the support level. So at the end of the day, I'm hopeful that this report on the Mayo relationship with ASU will be a part of the ABOR portfolio in the 2020s going forward, with 2 medical schools, an allied health program, 2 very significant research universities in the sense of scale, hundreds or even thousands of interactions, probably in the thousands of interactions between and among all people working together. And so what we've seen in the last few years through these relationships, through us taking a different approach, what I said to Regent Jewett at the time was we would become a scientific and technological hub and then link to everyone else and then link to other hubs and then build relationships and build networks. And so we've taken sort of a network overall approach. And so before I turn to Sally and Neil, and Neil as our Vice President for Research is our Mayo relationship manager, I thought I would just open it up to Regents just on this preface, because the preface is really important. We took a very circuitous route and have ended up in a good position. I think President Robbins would agree that, you know, we're now to the point where we can work as peers with the U of A. We have assets, we have mechanisms, we have tools, we have staff, we have capability, rivalry still exists, but it's not the overpowering force anymore. It's just an episodic thing on a case by case kind of basis, which is good. You want competition and you want rivalry on all things, but we're able to work together. And I will say that ASU, through our relationship with Mayo, we've become a much better university in teaching, in learning and discovery. We are a Mayo teaching partner across many subjects. We're a Mayo learning partner, and we're a Mayo research partner. I don't remember exactly, Neil, maybe you remember how many faculty between the two institutions are cross-appointed. It's in the 60 or something
approximately.
No, I mean that all the people that are joint appointed, not just the formal.
No, about 110.
110, okay. And so we have a lot of that going on, joint projects and so forth. So I'm going to stop there, Mr. Chairman, just to see if there's comments or questions about the history. And you're personally aware of so much of the history, and you and I have spent many times talking about this. And so I just wanted everyone to be aware of one of the most famous historical moments in the history of this institution has been its 2 times that it was asked not to build a medical school or told not to build a medical school, and the way that the university evolved itself. So I think we found a good way around that in a constructive way that's then, I think, put us in a good position. So.
Thank you, President Crow. Yeah, this controversy is obviously what led me to be raised in Tucson rather than Phoenix in 1964. So yeah, know the story well. Regents, questions of President Crow?
And this is prior to the presentation on exactly what the relationship is doing. So.
Right. I'll begin. I just want to get a global sense of the health and pace of the relationship. ASU's
Regent Duval, we lost your audio. I think it might be your connection.
I'm lip reading about a third of it. Something about pizza, double pepperoni.
It's not lunchtime yet.
No, that's what most of the Mayo relationship is focused on. building a healthy pizza.
Oh.
Is there any chance we can go all the way back and put ASU under the U of A again, or is that not open to discussion?
Well, I've said many times that probably would have been the wiser thing. So, U of A Tucson, U of A Flagstaff, U of A Phoenix, but it's probably Regent right now. We're probably past that now.
Yeah. That's supposed to be a joke.
All right. Let me go back to my question again. Apologize for these technical issues we're having in our house. So I guess my question is, I want to get a sense in going back to the original documents and the ambition, which is obviously expressed in the 2018 capital plan and everything that's come out of it. Is, I go look at the Center for Imaging Informatics, the Augmented Human Intelligence. There were a number of sort of foundational strategies that were embedded in the original proposal. And I want to get a sense from you, is this emerging with the vitality and pace that you expected? Where is it exceeding your expectations? Where is it not? And what do we need to do in order for it to be fully realized?
Well, so the answer is yes, but in what I call step functions as opposed to steeply arced curves. And so So Mayo is a very deliberate, large scale, careful investor. And so there's step function. So since Dr. Cantwell left ASU to join U of A, she knows that we were in a certain point then, and now they've decided to build a research building, to build a second hospital, to build another research activity, to build this, and this. They hadn't done that before. And so that's a step function. So the relationship is evolving with very significant step function efforts, meaning it goes steady, flat at the new step for a while, and then we jump up. And so now what we're seeing is that we're at one of these step functions. Mayo has decided to greatly expand research in the Arizona campus, building a whole new building, which is going to begin construction soon, immediately adjacent to the ASU Mayo Alliance building. We're advancing on the Alliance building. We're a little bit more of a opportunistic player. And so we build and then fill, they fill and then build. And so it's kind of a different kind of approach, but I think, Mr. Chairman, it is going well. I think the team will get into some of the details of that, but all the aspirations will be attained and then some. What you should look at the Mayo relationship as is, and I think President Robbins would agree with this, the U of A couldn't have built the relationship with Mayo that ASU is able to build the relationship with Mayo because there's not a medical school between us, if you know what I mean. And so that could change in the future. But what I'm saying now is that the relationship is accelerating, is on track to achieve all those things. Faculty are being hired, faculty are being located in these facilities, joint faculty are being appointed. Many more joint faculty will be appointed. And in particular, as we expand engineering, this is really something important for Regents to grasp. As we add another 50 or 100 faculty members in engineering, taking our core tenure track faculty in engineering up to 500, many of those appointments will be linked to the Mayo Clinic, as an example. And so then they will become more research intensive. That research intensity then will link with the U of A, link with other medical schools, medical centers, other research organizations. So what we're really doing here, I think, in the interest of the Regents, is we're greatly expanding the infrastructure and the network capabilities for research through our relationship with Mayo, for all of Arizona, not just the relationship between ASU and Mayo.
Thank you. Other questions of Dr. Crow, and I can't see, so speak up, and otherwise we'll turn over to Neil. Anyone?
So Dr. Crow, this is Bill Rydnor. How does your relationship with Mayo, you mentioned it would be, in the bigger picture, it's going to be great for the state of Arizona. And what do you mean by that, as far as programs that could overlap with the U of A or NAU? I know your College of Health Solutions is going to be very much involved with Mayo, and what will come out of that.
Well, Regent Rydner, the way to look at this, and President Robbins may want to comment on this, is that eventually, so what we're doing now is we're making up lots of ground. The U of A Medical School was a late start in the evolution of universities. And so it's a 1960s start. That's a late start for medical schools. The expansion of that medical school is a late start. The evolution of medical research in Arizona is a late start. So what we're doing, President Robbins might want to comment on this. What we're doing is we're rapidly accelerating and expanding and diversifying a network of research grade institutions in the biomedical space that didn't exist before. So the more Mayo research that becomes intensive, the more ASU becomes connected to that, the further evolution of the U of A, the further emergence of certain kinds of activities at NAU. In fact, the emergence of Creighton and expanded research at Banner and cancer centers and all the things that are going on, they move us into, where would you say we are now, Bobby? Kind of second tier cities right now in terms of biomedical research, or second tier regions. They would move us more into the first tier.
Yeah, this doesn't, we don't have enough time. You've got to go get the announcement done on your campus, which is, that's a whole other story we could spend another hour on. But I would just say what President Crow left out is that he and I developed a relationship during this story. It's a bit play in this, but we had long discussions about the role of ASU in developing but I think you're right. Probably second tier right now on the way to first tier.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we talked about all those years ago and continues to be applicable, I think, is using the Texas Medical Center as an exemplar. And Rice University, which doesn't have a medical school, sees themselves as the university to the Texas Medical Center, providing the research, particularly around engineering and informatics and other things, is the intellectual enterprise for the entirety of the medical complex in Maricopa County and beyond. So I think President Crow had, I've said this many times. Number one, I will say in this meeting that I wouldn't be here if it weren't for President Crow and our relationship. So I'll always be appreciative of that. But this is 2 decades of a masterful plan for how ASU can integrate into the entirety. Mayo is one part of it, I think, as President Crow has said. But it's bigger than just the Mayo. It's all the things that President Crow has talked about. And I've said all along, we all have to come together and work together. Competition is good, but I look at our situation rising into that first tier of a biomedical and biotech hub in the state of Arizona, is that we've got to come together. This is an important discussion in the bigger picture of that plan. But we're competing with the Cal system. We're competing with Texas, with Boston. And I think all of us coming together to work toward that end is going to be successful. And we're right on the precipice, I would say, of becoming a tier 1 place. Phoenix is becoming a national center. There's so many people coming there, and we've got a unique opportunity. And this is a major part of that overall strategy.
Terrific. Well, thank you both. In the interest of time, because we've only got an hour and a half.
Regent Duvall, we lost your audio.
I've been saying I'm going to get your own mute sign just to hold it up so you don't have to say it, but this is a good reason why we need to have in-person meetings. But
I'm so very sorry, this Wi-Fi mess that I'm dealing with. What I was saying is that in the interest of time, let's now move to Neil Woodbury and do the Mayo presentation that he had planned. We'd given about 30 minutes for this topic, and we've expired that. So we'll move through this relatively quickly so we can get on to research. But Neil, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chairman Duvall. Can everyone hear me okay? Good. Okay, so let me begin this. Hopefully you can now see the screen. So let's begin by talking a little bit more about what President Crow already discussed, and that is that this is one part of a very large network. We've got about 40 different partners in this network. We are as ASU, we are spread around the valley, and we work with our partners around the valley. So the thing that we're going to focus on today is Mayo. But I want to point out that that's just one piece of this larger network. And that network includes many different partners, like the clinical partners. It includes U of A. It includes aspects of NAU. We not only have the buildings up there at the Mayo Clinic, we've also got buildings downtown, and we work with U of A downtown in those buildings. We work with PCH. We work with Dignity. We work with all of the VA, all of our partners downtown as well. So this is one piece of that bigger network. The other place we work with tremendously is the state. We work in great detail with ADHS, and this was no more true before than during the pandemic. And so that relationship is also very close and very powerful, and one that we'll be carrying on going into the future. So let's see if I can get this thing to advance properly. There we go. Okay, so this is a relationship that's been going on for a long time. I won't belabor this because President Crow went through most of it, but we've been working with them for most of the last 20 years. In the last 5 or so years, we really launched this formal alliance. We've done a large number of things associated with that alliance, various kinds of seed programs. That's something that actually Betsy was working very hard on when she was here. Various kinds of joint research programs, lots of joint education programs associated with nursing and associated with how we're interacting with their medical school. So we've got many of those things going on. Obviously with time, as President Crow said, there was this step function. They put $750 million into expanding their Phoenix hospital. We then built the Health Futures Center, which opened in the end of last year. And now they're building a $131 million building right next to us. So lots and lots of things going on. Our fundamental areas of interest at this point are transforming the workforce, the sort of optimization of health and the human body, the connection to healthcare delivery, and this general topic of biomedical innovation. Now, we've got lots of people working with Mayo, and I work very closely with my counterparts there, particularly Rafael Fonseca and various others there. But we also have student impact. So this is not just those of us in the upper echelons of the administration working down there. We've got our students, we've got their students. We're doing lots and lots of things together. This is just a short list of some of the formal programs that our students are involved with. And then there's many, many informal interactions as well, with hundreds of students that are going back and forth and interacting with them. I'll point out a couple that are really interesting. Our Barrett Honors College students decided to do something about refugees. So they created this REACT program. They got together with the medical students at Mayo and figured out how they would put together clinics that would be responsive to refugees in the Valley. The Edson College of Nursing and Health Innovations, a huge group that has been very, very active in terms of developing the nursing workforce. So, et cetera, lots of things that we're doing now at that level. In addition to that, our faculty are very, very strongly involved in this. We talked about the 110 jointly appointed faculty, but we've had many other kinds of interactions. We have seed grants, we have a faculty in residence program where our faculty are at the clinic working with the physicians, understanding what the real problems are, and then coming back and figuring out how to build new research programs. In the Health Futures Center that we've built down there, we now already have 14 research labs operating, and about half of those are Mayo and half of those are ASU. So we are shoulder to shoulder in that regard in that building. That building is about the interaction. It is the physical manifestation of our interaction with Mayo. In addition to those research labs, we also have about 30 faculty, Mayo and ASU, in bioinformatics down there. So we've got a lot of things going on in that building, and that's really the catalyst that's going to move this whole thing forward in a big way. And then when they build their research building next door, that's just going to multiply by that. And we have many more things planned going forward. Obviously, ASU faculty are very involved in teaching as well, both in their medical school and in the nursing area and in many other aspects of that. We've put in the last 5 years almost $100 million worth of research grant applications with Mayo Clinic, another and about 23 million of those have come through. That's really was the process. Now that we've got the building in place, now that we've got a venue in which we're working together, I expect that's going to triple very fast. We've already had about 460 joint publications with Mayo. So lots and lots of work going on jointly with Mayo. A key thing about what ASU does, and this is something that President Crow made a point of, that is really important, is that we don't just stop at, okay, we've got a great interaction with Mayo, we're doing research, good, we're done. This is about how we take that research out, how we make an impact, not only on the patients at Mayo and the students at ASU and whatnot, and the research at ASU, but also how do we make an impact on the economy around us? How do we create an ecosystem around us, which is really going to be fantastic and helpful in the future? This list of companies is just this year's graduates from the ASU Medtech Accelerator. So just a sample of what's happened. We have located in the Health Futures Center, our Medtech Accelerator. And every year companies come in and we work with them to advance their biomedical concepts to a point where they can go out into the world and make a huge difference. And so an example of that, not this year, but previous years, is a company called SAFE. So SAFE is a Mayo, it came out of a Mayo group. In fact, Steve Lester, one of the people that is quoted here, was very much involved in that. When that originally was a group that was very interested in following STDs in colleges and things like that. But when the pandemic hit, they came to us and said, hey, how can we work with you to create something that will make a big difference here? And so we got together with them with our ASU mobile app that we have on our phones, and we created a health app that now allows us to monitor who's coming to campus. It asks you about your health. If your health is not right, it directs you to the right, if you're having problems, it directs you to the right place, directs you to testing, directs you to places to go. And so by working with that group, that's made a huge difference in our ability to manage this pandemic. And that's just one example. This is really important that we are working with the companies, we are working with Mayo and the companies to move these technologies out and move forward in big ways. Going forward, obviously the Health Futures Center is this catalyst. We're going to be doing many things within that center. We've already, as I said, moved in 14 labs. We have about 3 or 4 more that we can move into there, and we're working with Mayo on exactly the best and most strategic way to do that and get the best out of it. We have nursing facilities in there where they have simulation labs. We have laboratories to study motion. We're building a whole human performance capability associated with that building. So lots and lots of things that are going on there now and will be expanding in the future in terms of that building being a venue. Again, when the next building comes up, that will be even that will expand it even more. That's what you see there in the lower picture. You see the Health Futures Center to the left. You see the Mayo Clinic Hospital. That whole area back sort of to the left of the Health Futures Center, that's the next 6 buildings. So we have plenty of room to grow back there, and we have a lot of things that we're thinking about for building that campus and creating a real future. Mayo is also interested in expanding greatly its research capability in this area. And again, by not just stopping with Mayo and ASU, but bringing in companies, bringing in the relationships that we've been talking about, there's plenty of room there to create an ecosystem that is going to be extremely impactful on the Valley. And if you want an example of what happens when you do that, look at SkySong and look at the now $1.3 billion worth of economic value in that area that happened when we started bringing people together around concepts in the old decaying Los Arcos Mall area down there. So that's the kind of thing that can happen to an economic region when you do this sort of stuff. Now, Mayo at the same time as expanding its hospital, another $750 million expansion. And right there, where the blue arrow is pointing next to our research building, is where they're going to build their next research building. So that'll be a tremendous advance. It will increase our interactions dramatically. So that's just going to be a fantastic move forward. So back to this big picture. Again, the idea is that that's our interaction with Mayo. That's going to be an ecosystem, a high-tech ecosystem that we're going to build up there as a campus, as a interaction with the community, as a economic driver for the whole region, and as a developer of new ideas, new types of ways of looking at medicine altogether. And I think that you know the potential there is tremendous. This is just valley-wide. If you start thinking about the Phoenix downtown area, there's $3 billion worth of development going on down there right now. We've got the $100 million Crichton development. There's everything that's happening with Mayo. This means thousands of jobs. This means tremendous amounts of new space in which we can develop things. This is really an incredible, and Regent Duvall pointed this out, this is an incredible moment in time. If you think about it, what Sally will be talking about a little while from now is this massive expansion in terms of the semiconductor fabrication that will happen in Arizona. At the same time, we see the whole business of commercialization in space, something that our universities are deeply involved in, just expanding like crazy. So we have those two things happening at the same time that we have these opportunities from the federal government where we can really change the whole way in which we think about the health system in Arizona, the way in which health equity is taking place. And so lots and lots of opportunities here. And I think it's just a tremendous future that we have the requirement, almost the moral imperative as three universities to make sure that as this incredible expansion and all these things takes place, we help the state, help the economy happen in a way that is as just as possible and as equitable as possible. And so there's tremendous amount to do, but thank you very much, and happy to answer any questions.
Good, great. No, thank you. You know, we've only allocated an hour and a half for the entire meeting, and we do want to get on research, but I do also think that you've probably ignited a number of questions. If any of the board members or any regions have a burning question, let's tackle it. And otherwise, what I'd like to do is if you could make yourself available for some follow-up, you know, an email and phone calls. I suspect there'll be some curiosity. And anybody, and I can't see you, so you'll just have to speak up. Anybody with a burning question that we need to tackle today? Great. Hearing none, thank you, Neil, for that great report and for this insight into what's taking place. What I'd like to do now is move to the research agenda that we need to review and recommend for board approval, the 2020 annual research report. And what we'd like to do is discuss with each university their report. And I'd like to change the order a little bit. I'd like to, if we can, start with NAU and then go to U of A and then close back to ASU. So Chad, if that works for you, let's proceed and let's begin with NAU.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair. We've got George Raudenbush on the Zoom as well, and he will be doing the presentation, and we'll go to the VPR, Dean Smith. I'm going to ask Tom Merriam to flip to the NAU portion first, and George, if you're prepared to go with NAU first, is that okay? George, you're on mute.
Sorry, thanks. Thanks, Chad. Chair Duvall, Regents President. So NAU's research expenditures have been absolutely explosive for the last several years. 2020 marked the 8th consecutive year of increased annual research expenditures with a 5.6 million or 9.5% year-over-year increase from 2019. It is the 5th consecutive year where research expenditures at NAU exceeded their enterprise plan goals, exceeding the 2020 goal by $25 million. Over the last decade, where there were enterprise plan goals for research expenditures, NAU has been able to increase their annual research expenditures from 28.8 million to 64.5 million, which is an incredible 124% cumulative increase in annualized research expenditures. They have in totality exceeded their enterprise goals by more than $67.3 million. So a real, tremendous set of achievements there. Tom, if we can move to the next slide. NAU's research portfolio is concentrated in the university's core areas of competency. And we see that the largest area of research at NAU is in the life sciences. And that's followed by physical sciences, notably astronomy, and also geosciences, atmospheric and ocean sciences. There is an emerging competency in computer and information sciences, where they have in the last 5 years increased research expenditures from $200,000 to more than $2.7 million annually. They've increased their market share in this space 18-fold and increased their national ranking 170 places from 296 in the country to 126. So with those summary comments, I'll turn things over to the Interim Vice President for Research at NAU, Dr. Dean Smith.
Dean Smith, you're on, sorry, not Dean, Vice President Smith, you're on mute.
That'll do it. Chair Duvall, members of the board. I'm quite happy for the opportunity to discuss NAU's annual research report and to further describe the current state and future plans of our research enterprise. If we can go back to the first slide, please. Thank you. To begin with, I'll describe the benefits of research at NAU from a broad perspective. Then I'll review our strategy to focus research within our strengths in closely allied and impactful new areas. And I'll describe the calibration of our performance compared to our peers. Finally, I'll describe how the university plans to position itself to take advantage of new opportunities as they arise. Now we take the next slide, please. Our aim is to provide the right balance of professional instruction and experiential learning to achieve all of our goals, including retention and attainment, workforce development, and economic and social benefit for the state. Consequently, active research at NAU is integrated into and intertwined with our educational mission. Looking at the first bullet, active research enhances learning through experience and gives the next generation of Arizona's citizens opportunities to participate in the research. In a typical year, about 3,000 students participate in research projects through independent research study courses, support on a research grant or contract, or by internships funded by colleges or donors. Over 60% of the faculty at NAU participate in research, scholarly or creative endeavors, directly mentoring students. These experiences allow students to work closely with expert faculty members in a research environment and to develop critical thinking and technical skills that complement the rigorous training they also receive in the classroom. In the second bullet, research and scholarship opportunities directly support our competitiveness and success in strengthening programs that lead to high demand degrees, contributing to the state's workforce development. For example, in academic year 2019-2020, these activities supported programs leading to about 3,900 degrees in high demand fields, including science and engineering, education, and the health professions. And then bullet 3, NAU's success in research, scholarship, and creative activities also enhance the university's reputation, helping to attract and retain undergraduate and graduate students, as well as national caliber faculty members. This enhanced reputation has helped us to recruit faculty to new programs in recent years aimed at both increasing research activity and building our important educational programs in these high-demand fields. A prime example of this has been in the School of Informatics, Computing, and Cyber Systems, for which we've made 12 research active hires to bring the school to the appropriate scale. This school performs leading edge research and has developed some of the fastest growing research programs on campus. Another example has been the creation of the Center for Health Equity Research, or something called SHARE. SHARE seeks solutions to end health disparities through engagement with researchers, healthcare providers, and communities. As you know, this center has won the $21 million National Institute of Minority Health and Health Disparities Center grant to form the Southwest Health Equity Research Collaborative. May I have the next slide? Now, ensuring success in our missions as an Arizona public university requires prudent calibration of support and growth in research areas in which we can continue to be national leaders, areas that are closely allied with our core strengths and yield more opportunities for extramural support, and maintaining introspection on how each area continues to support NAU's other missions. NAU maintains commitment to our foundational core strengths in research focused on the ecology of wildlife, land, and water, biological sciences, and the health and well-being of Arizonans. In these areas, we have faculty members, educational programs, and research centers that are among the nation's leaders. And we will continue to invest and to support and to nurture these areas. Then, to address the needs and opportunities for jobs and societal benefits in emerging areas, we're strengthening research programs in foundational fields such as mechanical, civil, and electrical engineering. And growing in synergy with our core strengths are our efforts in bio, eco, and astroinformatics, computer and cyber systems science, bioengineering, material science, and astronomy, and planetary science. Our traditional core strengths in research and our emerging allied research programs then support our missions in educational success and workforce development. They knit together. May I have the next slide, please? An important way to calibrate the growth of NAU's research enterprise is to compare its scope with those of comparable public institutions. Now, we do this using the industry standard, the NSF, National Science Foundation Annual Survey of Higher Education, Research, and Development, nicknamed HERD, which includes data for about 600 universities in the United States. The chart on the left shows NAU's Nsf Herd Performance over the last 5 years. As we've already mentioned, it illustrates a gradual increase in research activity, driven in large part from our establishment of university-level research centers, creation of new integrated teaching and research units, like the School of Informatics, Computing, and Cyber Systems, and from increased sponsored project activity by research active faculty. NAU has increased its research expenditures, as has been pointed out, from 29 million 10 years ago to 59 in 2019, the last year when NSF published these data in the public domain, which in that period was a rise of 105%, far exceeding the national average of 36%, far exceeding it. In fiscal year 20, our expenditures reached 64.5 million, which is 9.5% increase over fiscal year 19, and as is pointed out, exceeded our enterprise metric goal by 25 million. In fact, fiscal year 20 is the 5th consecutive year we've exceeded our annual target. Now, NAU continues to increase our research expenditures, and we're proud of the progress we've made in these NSF rankings. We've also made considerable strides to increase our numbers of research personnel and assignable research square footage. Our expenditures related to federal government awards have experienced steady growth over time. Sponsorship by NIH, NSF, and the DoD have experienced the most significant increase, with annual expenditures now exceeding that reported in 2016 by more than $3 million from each agency. In fact, the majority of the growth in our expenditures, 70%, is attributable to these three agencies. The pie chart on the right categorizes our expenditures by broad discipline. Our largest gains this year over last year were in engineering, life sciences, particularly biology and biomedical, natural resources and conservation and health sciences, and physical sciences, particularly in astronomy. Life sciences continues to have the greatest share of expenditures at 60%, followed by geosciences, atmospheric and ocean sciences, 11.5%, and physical sciences at 11%. If I could have the next slide, please. Now, an appropriately scaled and focused research enterprise at NAU is vital and integral element of our success across all of our missions. Thus, it's important to regularly evaluate the scale of our enterprise by comparison with our national peers. The chart on the left shows NAU's fiscal year 19 NSF research expenditures, NSF reportable research expenditures compared with the mean value of those from our ABOR designated peers, as well as the public universities within our 2019 Carnegie R2 peer group. While we're proud of the increases of the NA research enterprise has experienced, this chart shows that our research activity approaching the average research activity of our ABOR peers remains behind the mean value for our Carnegie public comparators. NAU's main challenge is to remain competitive in our educational mission. The development of NAU's research portfolio helps the university enhance its reputation relative to our ABOR peers and Carnegie public comparator institutions, who are also intent on increasing their own research expenditures. In order to remain competitive within this group, sustained development of the research and scholarly enterprise at NAU is a necessity, an absolute necessity. Now, improvements to the university's reputation through research also helps attract new students into cutting-edge programs. Over the last 10 years, NAU has experienced growth in student enrollment into important degree offerings such as the biological sciences, computer science, astronomy, as well as psychology and social work that has mirrored the increase in expenditures in these same fields. The graph on the right illustrates the trends in enrollment and research expenditures for just one such example, the School of Informatics, Computing, and Cyber Systems, where we can see that the growth of expenditures and enrollments tracking each other. May I have the next slide, please? Now, I'd like briefly to highlight 3 exciting research projects that have contributed to our growth while providing important training opportunities for NAU students. The first, Dr. Bertrand Cambou and the colleagues in the School of Informatics, Computing, and Cyber Systems, designated 6 in the slide, are designing physically unclonable functions as non-traditional solutions to the ever-increasing threat of cyber attacks, for which his team was awarded over $6 million in funding from the DoD. Greatly simplified, physically unclonable functions are super long passwords based on the random imperfections of the computer chips themselves, like a fingerprint. And that's the cutting edge in cybersecurity, and we're right there. Under their mentorship, students receive a broad training in computational material sciences as well, and they are well equipped to enter the cybersecurity workforce in this critically important industry for the state. In the middle panel, Dr. Greg Caparasso and the Pathogen and Microbiome Institute, the PMI for short, developed the microbial bioinformatic platform, Quantitative Insights into Microbial Ecology, known as QIME-2, a second-generation bioinformatics software platform to assess the role of the microbiome in human health and to understand how the microbiome may be altered in various forms of cancer. His team was a recent recipient of a $700,000 award from NIH for this work. Dr. Caparasso's mentees developed translational skills at the interface of biotechnology and informatics and are well positioned to make contributions in healthcare as personalized medicine becomes increasingly important to society. And finally, researchers in the Center for Health Equity Research, known as SHARE, which is committed to finding solutions to end health disparities, have received over $1.2 million in NIH funding for multidisciplinary projects related to the COVID-19 pandemic. Under the direction of Dr. Julie Baldwin, researchers and their mentees are spearheading interdisciplinary and culturally centered efforts to find community-driven solutions to address health inequities laid bare by the pandemic in underserved communities across the state. Now, I would like to describe how, in the next slide, please. I'd like to describe how NAU pursues its goals and at the same time ensures sustainability of the research enterprise. As I described earlier, our focus remains on our core research areas where NAU has maintained traditional strengths, such as ecosystem science and management, biological sciences, and astronomy and planetary sciences. We will continue to build upon these longstanding strengths by supporting the related rapidly growing fields of informatics and cyber systems, bioengineering, and material science. To develop these areas, the Research Office works closely with academic fairs to support new research active hires, as well as outfitting research space and providing access to specialty instrumentation and unique facilities. The success of early career faculty is not only important to NAU, but a crucial component of the sustainability of the research enterprise. We have a number of mechanisms in place to support new faculty, include proposal preparation, revision support, intramural seed grants and awards, and mentorship opportunities. Finally, the university has found success in the development of programs that integrate research with teaching or public service. The School of Informatics, Computing and Cyber Systems and the Center for Health Equity Research are two examples of research intensity programs that also support NAU's educational mission and its dedication to service in the community. May I have the next slide, please? Going forward, the success of the research enterprise will be defined by its ability to respond to opportunities as they present themselves. To do this, we'll continue to rely on our unique strengths to pursue new scientific discoveries and train the next generation of Arizona's workforce. As an example, NAU is a leader in forestry, climate science, and environmental health. Researchers in these fields will lead their own efforts, and NAU's expertise also makes us natural partners for larger multi-institutional collaborations in these areas. As the US government recently proposed an influx of over $14 billion into climate and clean energy research, these partnerships are expected to be increasingly important in the years to come. Enabling continued research success is another goal of our institution, and our office focuses on strategies to maximize the ability of NAU investigators to write strong and competitive proposals. In the coming months, the Research Office plans to implement programs for seed funding, research instrumentation, and proposal preparation support that will allow researchers across the institution to respond to new funding opportunities in their areas of expertise. NAU aims to place our researchers in position to utilize their expertise to explore new external funding for research and scholarship on campus, which in turn provides benefits to all of our missions as an Arizona university. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Smith. Terrific array of slides. It is an incredible story. The last decade has been transformative for NAU, and it's you tell it well, and I appreciate that. I'm going to ask that we hold questions until we've heard from the other two universities in the interest of time, because I think some of the regions are going to have hard stops. So stay with us, and with your permission, what I'd like to do, George, turn it back to you and go to Dr. Cantwell with U of A, and then from there to ASU, and then with the time that remains, we can do some Q&A with all three.
Sure. Thank you. For the purposes of brief introduction, when we look at the University of Arizona's research expenditure activity in 2020, we see the fourth consecutive year of increased expenditures with a year-over-year increase of 15.8 million or 2.2%. Notably, they sort of surpassed the benchmark number of 750 million in annual research expenditures for the first time. It was also the fifth consecutive year in which the University of Arizona exceeded its expenditures exceeded their enterprise plan goals, doing so in 2020 by $96.4 million. Over the last decade, the University of Arizona has increased annual research expenditures by 163.5 million or 27.8%. And since the recalibration of their goals during the 2015 enterprise plan revisions, they have exceeded their goal each and every year. Moving to the next slide. The University of Arizona research portfolio, like the Northern Arizona University's research portfolio, is concentrated in core competencies, with 60% of their research expenditures occurring in the life sciences, which includes agricultural sciences, reflective of their land grant mission, biological and biomedical sciences, and health sciences, which is a natural reflection of their medical school activity, followed by physical sciences, which represents 20% of their portfolio, which includes astronomy, where the University of Arizona is ranked #1 nationally. With that, I'll turn it over to Senior Vice President of Research, Innovation, and Impact, Dr. Betsy Cantwell, for further comments.
Good morning. Chad, do you want me to next slide it with you? Are you going to drive for me?
We'll absolutely drive. All you need to say is next slide, Dr.
Thank
Cantwell.
you, Chad. Chair Duvall, Regents, it's a pleasure. I'm going to go fairly quickly for what must, I think, be obvious reasons, and just sort of subtext everything I'm going to talk about by saying, when I briefed this at the University of Arizona, the subtitle is always Embracing Complexity. And that is exactly what we do. Next slide, please. So we always start with respectfully acknowledging that the University of Arizona exists on ancestral, traditional, and contemporary lands of the O'odham and Yaqui tribes. Next slide, please. You saw this in the TRIF presentation a month ago. I'm not going to go into it in detail, except to remind you that our overall research goal is to position Arizona as the resilient state. And I'll particularly point to bullet number 1. In so doing, create an agile state economy. Next slide, please. So I'm going to go through some risks, some challenges, and some successes. And as I do that, I will try to refer to the exhibits in the research report that are relevant to this discussion. So some risks. This is the first bullet is fairly well known for most US universities. I have one of the better references is an AAU reference on F&A recovery. That's that's really overheads, G&A for those of you that work in the contract world, facilities and administration for those of you that work in the grant world. For the last probably 5 years, about 85% of research costs are actually covered by the F&A and awards. So that additional 15% has had a number of ways that it's been covered over the many years at the University of Arizona. That number was quite a bit lower 10, 15 years ago. But we are now in an environment where the panorama of options that we have to include tuition revenues that fill in the gap there requires that we continue to grow. Our focus as a university has historically been on the support for our incredible individual PIs and creating partnerships within the university and building our research portfolio that way. We have been phenomenally successful, but we need to change. And I'll talk about that. And then our core facilities are suffering. I showed you this graphic during the TRIF presentation last month, but it really basically says that the amount of federal government support for the physical underpinnings of research at research universities in the US is dropping precipitously. Next slide, please. So some challenges. At the University of Arizona, our current financial model as approach to supporting research has been sort of subsumed by the RCM of the last 5 years and is a subject of active discussion now as we move to activity-informed budgeting. I'm not going to go into that. Suffice to say that we are really looking at how we scale our research infrastructure and our development of research with the growth that we see. And I'll address some of that in the next couple slides. Our federal agencies are demanding more skin in the game. What does that mean? It means that a much higher percentage of the bids that we put in have to have some version of a match from the university. And this is, there's a lot of data on this out there in the online world, but I'm happy to provide you with references. This is something that has really expanded in the last 5 years, and we don't expect it to change during the Biden administration. The other thing that we see in spades, and is probably worth some future discussion, is the amount of scrutiny and oversight that federal agencies have really increased. And I'll use as the canonical for us all to think about what is called foreign influence, and the amount that the major federal research agencies have increased their scrutiny in that area. We all have to manage it. There's nothing particularly scary about it, but it is a very significant impact on people's time and effort within the university. Partnerships with industry, we all know, ASU has been a remarkable leader in demonstrating how to build research programs by partnering with industry. We expect to see significant increases in focus on this during the Biden administration. And we are looking at the University of Arizona, we are not, our faculty will not be flat, but our additional faculty hires in total numbers will not be substantial over the next few years. So we have thought long and hard about how we grow research with limited additional faculty hiring. Next slide, please. One of the implications of that I like to point out, so between 2017 and what you see in the 2021 projected is a really simple calculation of our herd expenditures total for the university divided by the number of tenure and tenure eligible faculty at the university. In order to get to the point, we have some estimations of small increases in faculty at the University of Arizona, particularly in the College of Engineering, which is great for research, that we will still see a real increase in the research productivity we're sort of requiring at an aggregate basis out of our tenure and tenure eligible faculty. And we'll talk a little bit about that. Next slide, please. I want to focus a little bit on some recent successes and tell you about them in the context of how we look at our future. And so some of these, actually none of these are discussed in specific in the research report. We do continue to compete for large grants. I'll point to the Center for Quantum Networks. That's a $50 million 10-year NSF ERC grant. And I point to that because it's not only inherently multidisciplinary, it's a combination of a number of units within the University of Arizona and a number of other disciplines at our partner universities in this grant. But most importantly, the social sciences are front and center in this grant. And we expect to see a lot more expectation on the part of federal agencies that for these large grants, you will have the social implications, you will have the behavioral implications embedded in grants. In Alzheimer's and Aging, I want to point to Regent Professor Carol Barnes's recent $5.7 million grant from the National Institutes on Aging for her Alzheimer's related research in preserving memory circuits. She's very focused on what she calls, a healthy brain span, not just a healthy lifespan. The carbon mapper is a really interesting example. You may have heard about it. It's a partnership between the University of Arizona and ASU, but also the Jet Propulsion Laboratory and some very large philanthropic organizations. We believe that this is also a hallmark of some of the activities we're going to have to engage in the future. This particular activity is led at the University of Arizona by Riley Duren, who is a relatively new faculty member and is also an advisor and continuing advisor for the Biden transition team in climate and energy. This actual program launches large numbers of satellites that downward look the globe and map carbon emissions at very fine detail levels. And then the last one is a mission called the Aspera mission. It's a $20 million NASA grant to examine parts of the galaxy that have not been examined well before, that we don't understand very well. What's important about this grant, it was awarded to a postdoc. So we allowed a postdoc to become a PI for a lot of reasons, but not the least of which is he was the right guy to do it. And we will spend more and more of our discretionary capacity supporting our younger and earlier stage faculty in achieving research intensity earlier in their careers. Next slide, please. So the obligatory ranking slide, you've seen most of this in President Robbins' presentation last month, but I want to focus most on the lower right-hand ranking, because we will be bringing the Blue Ridge Institute for Medical Research rankings to the table more and more often. This points to a really great ranking on the part of the College of Pharmacy and NIH funding, but our overall College of Medicine and University of Arizona Health Sciences rankings in the Blue Ridge rankings have been going up really substantially in the last few years. And I'll talk a little bit about why on the research side in the next couple of slides. Next slide, please. I'm just going to do a very quick overview. I hope we'll have another meeting chat on tech transfer and our innovation arms. We have a prodigious amount going on, as does ASU and NAU. But in this case, I just want to point out, you know about our tech park. We have both a recent and another ongoing evaluation of the economic impact of the tech park. This is the Rita Road, this is the new bridges, and this is the smaller incubator, life sciences incubator in Oro Valley. And just point out that their goal in life is to serve the University of Arizona by attracting new businesses, growing established businesses, launching new companies, and creating high-paying jobs. So in my world, that's an entire panorama from creating research and new ideas all the way out to growing the local economy. Next slide. Same thing, different entity, which is Tech Launch Arizona. The most recent economic impact evaluation for Tech Launch Arizona covered the years 2016 to 2018. And again, we have just contracted to do another one for 1920. And then we hope it to be done in 21, looking at the numbers of startups, really tax generated, new jobs, et cetera. This steps away from the perspective of tech transfer on the number of patents created and really looks at what's the local economic value of doing that. Next slide. So you asked us to talk about sustainable research enterprise. And I'm going to give you my perspective on that and then talk about where we think the new opportunities are in the Biden administration. So our path forward focuses on these things: developing donor and industry partnerships. I've talked about that and we'll talk about it some more. Changing our research infrastructure support models so we don't feel like our research infrastructure is as much at risk. Larger and more complex research programs that really we have to pick winners in order to go where we want to go, in order to grow. And we are largely picking them in the areas of fourth industrial revolution, either technologies or support for the health sciences. And we're looking for those larger grants in part because they yield higher return on investment, meaning what we expend inside the university in order to acquire them, and that can be over years of faculty support, actually ends up being less per dollar when you go to the larger and larger grants. We are looking some at increasing our contract-based funding mechanisms. There's a lot of reasons for doing that. Some of the most interesting federal work at the basic research level is now being is now being let on the contract basis as opposed to a grant basis, particularly in the DoD, which is an area we see a lot of growth at the University of Arizona. And then this will be the first time you see, but in all of my slides and all of my discussions with you going forward, you will always see some version of how do we address diversity and inclusion in research. It is an intractable challenge embedded in all of the intractable challenges in creating diversity, not just within our student population, not just within our faculty population, but within the population of people that we serve with our research. Next slide. So a little bit about grant expenditures by college. I am using this slide so that I can focus on the far left, which is the College of Medicine, Tucson. But we do track all of this every year. You'll see puts and takes when I show this to you again. This goes from FY16 to FY20, covers more than herd expenditures. So this is all research expenditures in these units. And I want to focus on the College of Medicine, Tucson, because they are not only doing remarkably well, but have a really aggressive research strategy driven by Dean Abecasas. So their award grant dollars over FY18 to FY21 have increased 1.7% in 18 to 19, 15.7% in 19 to 20, and 24% in 20 to 21. Now, those are awards. What you see on this slide is expenditures. And I want to point to something that's potentially slightly challenging for us. So you've heard it and you think about it as we go forward and present. This shows expenditures, which show a slight drop in expenditures for the College of Medicine, Tucson in 2020. That is directly and solely associated with pullback in expenditures from COVID-19 related activities, largely clinical trials and a little bit of what you might call field-based work. Awards are going up, expenditures are not going up. So you've seen me do this little thing with my hands and try to get the camera right, where we have awards going up precipitously in the College of Medicine and expenditures still slowed down by COVID. We are beginning to expend at a normal rate, but we're going to have to play some catch up there. So the College of Medicine, Tucson, is developing a 3-year strategic plan for research strategic plan focusing on interdependent, transdisciplinary, collaborative research, not only within the units in the College of Medicine and the Health Sciences, but also across the College of Science and the College of Engineering. And you'll hear more from me in the future about how we do that. And then how do we account for that in the herd rankings, which do not give you a lot of room in telling a story about your multidisciplinary research and how you're growing that. Now, I will say Dean Abecasas has right now 8 interim department chairs in place. He's got 6 new department chairs that he's hired over the last 2 months. All of Dean Abecasas's research focus is that those chairs have a major role in growing the research in their departments. And I'll talk in a minute about how we deal with that in the space sense. Next slide. Industry partnerships, I talked about. This is a slide that shows you proposal amounts and industry amounts. You will see these are not large dollars. Part of the reason for growing our connections with industry and industry-based research are not because they'll grow our research base by $100 million. It is because everything we expect to see in the Biden administration will be dependent on industry partners. And this is to create those industry partnerships. We don't expect them necessarily as a core area to grow the research base. We expect them to be partners in our ability to acquire federal dollars. Next slide. This is something to expand on what George showed going out. You heard about this during the metrics meeting. I guess it was this month. But we are projecting, since we've hit our 2025 goal, we've reviewed our projections and done a very simple algorithm. There's no magic to this. There's no boasting. It is really, we looked at our 2020, what we have in the pipeline in bids right now. What proposals are out there unawarded? We generally win between 22 and 25%. So we basically did a 25% cut and said we can hit 775 in 2021, and then did a 4% increase flat across the board. As we get into what we expect to see in the Biden administration, and frankly, those awards will not begin to hit our research expenditures until the 2023-2024 timeframe, we may revise these, but 4% is not just rational, but it's a little bit of a push for us. If we were to, I have a different perspective on doing this, but if we were to exceed every year, we didn't give you the right projections. So hopefully this is rational. And if you want to have a discussion about when we'll hit $1 billion, I'd be happy to do that. Next slide. I just want to remind everybody, this is, you saw this during the TRIF slide deck. This is the overview of our TRIF focus areas for 2022 to 26. The reason I'm showing you this now is it actually shows you many of our focus areas for where, as I said, we have to focus for research. This really highlights in all of these areas, fourth industrial revolution, the impact of data, the impact of AI and machine learning and robotics. But these are our focus areas across the board, not just in TRIF, where we will support the growth of research. Next slide. It's a complicated slide. There's a lot going on here. I'm using the part on the left to highlight that herd rankings don't tell you a whole lot about where we are multidisciplinary. And they don't tell you about how we're growing multidisciplinary work. So you can see, and there's many things embedded in this little graph, which I'd be happy to talk about it at some later date, about things like the ARA effects back in 2012 and 2013, and some big bumps that we got with regard to large grant and optical sciences. But these frustrate me because I want to be able to tell the multidisciplinary story. And so we are working on metrics for that. At least within our finance system. As you know, we're changing our finance systems over the next few years. That was part of our strategic plan, and we will be growing capacity to report out on true multidisciplinary grants and awards. On the other two charts here, I like to sort of throw data at you so you can see a little bit about how I'm thinking, at least, are how do we grow proposal sizes as we grow our expenditures. We have we have a sort of in the aggregate semi-flat level of proposal sizes. We are really firing the rocket thrusters on going after fewer mid-sized proposals and more large-sized proposals. And hopefully you'll see that in the data over the next few years. The other slide, this is not actually dollars for industrial engagement. This really shows you what counts in our herd rankings for industry engagement. And that has been going up year on year. We do expect, based on the engagements that we're seeing and the partnerships we're developing this year, to see that go up. But I really want to remind you that the value there is when our industry partners come to the table with us for these very large hub grants that we see coming down the pipeline in the next 2 or 3 years, that's where it's really valuable to us. Next slide. Very quickly, I'm just going to say we have embarked on a study, a very thoughtful study of our research space and our research facilities. We are thinking about our existing space, how we can reuse it, how we can create new paradigms up around space resiliency. We are not a campus that's going to be building 5 new buildings a year. We are building 2 new buildings for applied research, but we have gotten a hold of a really nice company called Co-Architects that did a study that we really liked for the University of Michigan, helping them do exactly what we want to do, which is really identify where resources need to go for research infrastructure. Now, I will say this will integrate in with the University of Arizona campus master plan. It is not the same thing, so I don't want you to get confused about this. This study should be completed probably in the August-September timeframe. And when it is, I'll brief out on that. Next slide, please. And the next one. I'm just going to talk about our processes for growth. So I'm giving you kind of a sense of how I think about this. We look at 4 elements for growth. What's the strategy? What's the infrastructure capability? How do we engage? And where do we want to be thought leaders? And we use something that I learned about in industry called integrated project teams. We don't necessarily use that term, but we use the same capability. We basically bring teams broadly from all of the areas in the university that have some oversight of these and ask the question about our growth in these core areas. How do we do this? So we work closely with the deans on strategic hires and cluster hires. We're looking for more large and team science-based awards. We're expanding the portion of existing faculty or active researchers. We are really focusing on our early career and younger faculty. We're diversifying our federal sponsors. The University of Arizona is very strong in NSF and NASA. We are increasing our awards in DoD and focusing very strongly on the Department of Energy. We're developing a Research Leaders Academy. This is something that ASU does incredibly well. It pays off in spades. Again, we're looking at our infrastructure. I'm focused on cores. That is the research infrastructure that can serve multiple units and multiple awards. It's extremely important for how we move forward. We're convening and incentivizing new multidisciplinary centers. A hallmark of that is one I talked about, I think during the TRIF report a month ago, called the Center for Global Adaptive Pandemic Response. That is inherently multidisciplinary: engineering, medicine, other aspects of the health sciences, as well as the social sciences. We are developing an industrial advisory committee very specifically for research. And then we're looking at where do we want to be and really make our mark as thought leaders. Next slide. So applying these elements to philanthropy, I'm not going to read all of the bullets here, but we are building a cohesive campaign for philanthropic support. We have Drs. Robin, this is done in hand in glove with the U of A Foundation. We would like to see stronger focus on, for instance, infrastructure support for research. And this is in the philanthropic area. We are hosting solution-focused summits with the UA Foundation. We're looking at securing commitments for all kinds of approaches to our research focus areas. And then I'll say under thought leadership, we're really looking very, very carefully and working with Tucson and Pima County for regional development and how we do that. Next slide, I have just 2 more to go. Maybe just one. So I think Regent Duval, you asked us to talk about a little bit about where we see things in the Biden administration. So I'm going to do this in 2 parts. One is we look at 5 pillars that the Biden administration has been very clear they are focused on. And I will say about climate change and clean energy, we see that coming to the fore in terms of opportunities in the 2023-2024 timeframe. So we are building partnerships to get ready for that. In the meantime, we have identified a number of early efforts for the federal discretionary budget, both associated with American Jobs Plan and with the Frontiers legislation. So we see some real opportunities in leveraging our extension offices and our land grant mission around network, the money that's associated with building networks of small business incubators and innovation hubs. We see regional technology hubs within the Department of Commerce legislation. This is really endless frontiers related, focused on quantum communications and quantum leverage points. That for obvious reasons, really a strength of ours. But the same thing, the quantum focus in manufacturing, where there are new manufacturing institutes and in fact, very clear funding going for test beds and fabrication facilities, is a focus on supply chain innovation, not just for critical technologies, but in a very early opportunity for quantum technologies, where the supply chain issues get down to not only things like critical materials, but and rare earths, for instance, but also what does the supply of very specialized electrical components, which are not made at scale in the U.S., how do we enhance the capacity to do that? We look at our background and designation as a Hispanic serving institution and ask the question for the new awards and monies that have been made available, how do we position ourselves best? We're doing 2 things there. We're working with all of our HSI R1 colleagues across the nation, and we're also working with a number of HBCUs across the nation and asking how do we meaningfully work together on improving innovation and regional competitiveness. Our water expertise is pretty well known. I would just say there are really early stage opportunities in the Biden administration in the industries of the future discussions, which slot right in with the growth of the NSF to bring fourth industrial revolution approaches to water resilience and adaptation for arid and semi-arid environments. And finally, leveraging our COVID-19 response for future pandemics. I will mention that the Biden administration has been talking about ARPA Health for quite some time. They have not made that real, but there is an enormous amount of opportunity for both the University of Arizona and ASU should that come to the fore. That will be all about innovation and making things happen in the health field. Next slide. Finally, how does this all position us for helping the state of Arizona? We, and again, I'll just end by saying we prepare the university and the state for challenges and opportunities. We focus on that as we look at things we're going to go after, especially the large bids. We're looking to expand our impact and influence, not just within the state, but for the state across the world. And in that context, I'll say, just to remind you all of something I've said the last couple times I've briefed you, but digital health is an area where we expect our impact on the state to be prodigious, and we expect that to impact both the companies that come to the state and the new companies we build in the state of Arizona, and therefore have a prodigious impact on the world. I think there is more than enough room for all three of our universities to gather together around digital health and make that influence palpable for the state. And then we do seek to strengthen our creative resilience and sustainability. And by that, I mean, we're looking at our business model. I alluded to that some. We're looking at balancing priorities. We're trying to pick winners. We can't do it all. We're building our research brand, our brand following. We're doing a lot in our new DC offices. We're continuously reviewing our governance. How are we making sure we're doing the right things and the right things within and for the university? And we're optimizing right and left. That's it. Thanks.
Okay, Dr. Canwell, thank you. That, as you were with TRIF, highly strategic and much appreciated. Really appreciate that you anticipated a lot of our questions and the alignment around new funding sources, obviously top of mind. So thank you for all of that. I think as everybody realizes, we're past time, and I want to apologize to everybody for that. We took on the Mayo topic at the front end, so you know, in a sense, we used ASU's time for that. We needed to, and it was very helpful, but I want to apologize to Dr. Morton that we're not going to get the full time with you that we wanted in this instance, but we will, I promise, in another. What I would like to do is give George a minute or two just to give us the snapshot on ASU's portfolio. Promise you that we'll come back to you for the full color commentary on another occasion. And then before we lose Regents, we do need to formally vote in order to pass the research report onto the full board. So with that, I'd like to turn to Chad and George for the quick ASU overview, and then ask Regents to stay with us long enough so that we can conduct our vote.
Sure, thank you, Chair Duvall. In a very quick summary, in 2020, ASU increased their annual research expenditures by 33.8 million, or 5.3%, to reach 673.4 million in annualized expenditures. Over the decade for which there were enterprise plan goals, ASU consistently increased research expenditures year over year in all 10 years, more than doubling their annual research expenditures in the process, an almost unprecedented achievement. They exceeded their enterprise plan goals, which were unchanged during the 2015 enterprise plan revisions in 9 of 10 years, and cumulatively exceeded their goals over the decade by more than $185 million. Next slide, please. ASU is unique amongst our three institutions in that their research portfolio is extremely diversified across the institution. You can see here that they're doing substantial scale of research across all 10 of the Herd broad disciplinary categories. I would also call attention to the transdisciplinary, multidisciplinary, or other sciences category. Dr. Cantwell alluded to difficulties in capturing this in the Nsf Herd survey, and I would say that if anything, this is the most interdisciplinary of all interdisciplinary, in that the Nsf guides you to sort of cram things down into other disciplines where possible. But I think that this really does capture and reflect ASU's charter ambition to become a global center for interdisciplinary research. In fact, they are ranked #1 in the country, controlling an incredible 8% of all US university research in this space, and have increased this more than 120% in just the last 4 years. So with that, I'll conclude my remarks and stand for questions.
Terrific. I can't see the screen. I don't know if there are burning questions, but I'm really mindful of everybody's time, and I'm worried that we will lose our quorum. So I'm going to give a pause, and if Sally wants to add anything briefly, great, or Regents a quick question. And otherwise, I'm going to move to our vote. Any immediate questions or Sally, a comment you want to make?
Yes, thank you very much. I'm very mindful of the time now. I'd like to offer my congratulations to my sister universities. You just got me so excited about potential partnerships, and many congratulations. I focused my talk on a particular example that demonstrates the proactive, agile, and collaborative strategy of ASU, and that is in how we are responding to the CHIPS for America Act. Very, very exciting possibility of bringing a large portion of that funding for a core that would be focused in Arizona, would be physically located in Phoenix, but would be available to the entire state. And I would be pleased to speak offline with any of the regents who would like to learn more about this opportunity. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you. A couple of quick notes and follow-ups. First is Chad, would you make sure that the PowerPoints get distributed to everybody, because they're all terrific. And that will tee up, I'm sure, some follow-up discussions with all of you, and particularly you, Sally. Secondly is, again, want to really compliment everybody on the work that's taken place during COVID. It has really been exceptional and impressive, and great, frankly, during a legislative session to have our research in such public display and our values so clear. What I'd now like to do, however, is do the official business we must do, which is to move the committee, the report, the annual research report forward. So I'd like to move that the committee forward to the full board for approval, the 2020 annual research report. Is there a second?
Second.
Great, moved and seconded. Any discussions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Great. No abstentions, and the motion passes. Want to thank everybody again for a terrific work. Apologize for the accelerated nature of our close, but actually it was extremely informative, very impressive, very timely. We'll make it up to ASU going forward. I know that folks will have follow-up questions, and please forward your questions to Chad, and we will we'll get some answers, and look forward to our next meeting. And again, apologize for my technical challenges at the top end, but terrific presentations all around, and couldn't be more pleased with our progress. Any other comments? Otherwise, I'm going to adjourn our meeting. Hearing none, our meeting is adjourned. Thanks everybody for your time.